Welcome to the NCLA Podcast. I am your host, Rachel Mann, and today we are joined by Shelley Groves. Shelley is the superintendent and CEO of Eastland-Fairfield Career and Technical Schools in Groveport, Ohio, and she spent her 26 years in education working with students enrolled in career and technical education, but she started her career as a mathematics instructor, then moved into building administration and has been working for the past 6 years at the district level, this year being her first year as the superintendent and CEO. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Shelley has presented several times to various audiences about the impact and importance of work-based learning experiences, as well as best practices and pitfalls to avoid, which we're excited to hear about. So welcome to the show, Shelley.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Well, to start off, can you walk us through your journey from being a math teacher to becoming the superintendent within the same district and working with CTE populations, and what motivated this transition?
Absolutely. How long do we have, Rachel? That might be a little bit of a while, but absolutely. I will not share years, but just know I've been in education for a while. So when I completed my bachelor's degree, I didn't go directly into teaching. I didn't put myself out there, if that makes sense. So graduated in June. I worked the summer at a hospital, local hospital. And in December, I received a call from a teacher, a math teacher that was working and said, "Hey, I don't know if this is something you'd even be interested in. It's kind of working with those kids," which number one stuck with me. What are those kids? What's that mean? And it was a math instructor position opening at Fairfield Career Center in Carroll, Ohio. So I thought, okay, well, this kind of fell in my lap here. I didn't put myself out there and let's try this. So when in December, was hired the first week before winter break to take over for a teacher within Eastland-Fairfield district. I'll tell you, that's a wonderful time to start teaching the week before a long break. It's always wonderful. The students are engaged, ready to go. But from day one, I fell in love with those students that were participating in career technical education, hearing their stories. And there wasn't a lot of training or education about that as I was going through my teacher prep. You hear a lot of the K-12, but you do not get a lot of training on what exactly is career technical education. So it was my first experience, was my first job. And just talking to those students and the bravery it takes to step out of your comfort zone and do something different. In Ohio, we have a couple different models of career technical education, and Eastland-Fairfield is a joint vocational school district, meaning we service 16 different schools and they send students to us to participate in programs. And so these kids were leaving their home schools they've known for 10 years, stepping out of their comfort zone and coming to a brand new building with new teachers, new format, a new schedule. I don't think I could have done that as a high school student. That's just a really brave choice. So from day one, fell in love with career technical education. I always loved math. So the two kind of married with this experience, taught math for a long time and never thought I wanted to be an administrator. I loved the classroom. I was deeply involved with our career tech student organization, specifically Skills USA. So got to lead that charge at the building level. An opportunity came open, I would say about 15 years into my journey. I hadn't started any type of principal or leadership program to earn my principal license, but the opportunity came up and I thought, you know what? I can do more. I can do more to help these students. I can do more to help the staff. I loved teaching. I love being with the kids, but just that feeling of something's pulling me a little bit more to step out there. So I applied again with no license, applied. The district took a step of faith in me and said, okay, let's do this. Hired me as the assistant principal. So I was the assistant principal for 2 years. And then the principal position came open. So in those 2 years, I earned my principal license and then moved right into the principalship. Again, all the while, just admiring what these students are able to do and accomplish in career technical education. It just feels different. their passion, their excitement. And again, that bravery, I'm in awe of them. Not every student could do this, could participate in it, but those that do, I admire them so much. So that being said, now I'm a principal at Fairfield Career Center, making that leap to district office. I was principal for about 6, 7 years, and making that leap to district office, again, just had that tug, that nudge of, you can do more. You can serve more, because I truly do see leadership as a servant activity, especially for our students, creating opportunities and looking big picture. What conversations need to be had so we can open some doors to programming or business partnerships or curriculum opportunities for these students. So moved to district office. Did love it. I moved here right before COVID. So I will tell you, COVID was a wonderful time to be at district office. Yes, it was a great experience, lots of learning. Um, and then I will tell you, today is actually day 100. This is my 100th day as the superintendent of Eastland-Fairfield Career and Technical Schools. So I'm going to have to post something out there about this. This is a monumentous day for me. I'm still standing at day 100, so loving the journey.
I love that. And I'm so excited that we can have you on the podcast for the first time on such a monumental day. That's so exciting. Well, and Shelley, I really appreciate you emphasizing that whole stigma that is still there around CTE. Folks who look at it as for those kids and still view it as vocational ed, which we know that career and technical education is for every kid. There is something
Mhm.
for everyone. And the kids who actually step out there and leave their home school, get on that bus or whatever form of transportation and go to this new area, it's an act of bravery. And
Oh,
there's
yes.
so much excitement, and we know that that's where the real magic happens. And I think back to my first year as a teacher, well, actually, before I even started teaching, and that interview where the principal sat down and told me all of the reasons that I did not want this job and that it was a dumping ground. And at the end of the interview, after not asking one question about my qualifications, said, "Do you still want the job?" And I said, "Yes, I want the job." And that principal never stepped foot into my classroom. He actually told me, he said, "I appreciate the fact that you don't write students up. I don't have to go to your classroom." He asked me when I had an evaluation, bless his heart, I'm sure he was overwhelmed and busy, but I remember being asked to kind of write up what I had done during that class because he didn't make it to the observation. I'm like, "Hey, this guy is terrified to come into my classroom. What is happening?" Um, which just made me that much more welcoming when people would want to visit. It's like, yes, someone's coming to see the great things that are happening. But being able to also make those connections as a math teacher between CTE and core academics, interdisciplinary approach, that is amazing. So, what are some of the challenges you faced when shifting roles, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I'm very unique, Rachel, and I don't say that in a very boastful manner. I'm unique just in the fact that my whole career has been with one district. I started as a math teacher, and I've worked with my colleagues, the folks that I taught with for 15 years. And when you move into administration, they kind of whisper, "You're on the dark side." You're Yes, you're making that transition. Oh. Um, and I had a mentor, Dr. Kimberly Peach Miller. I've worked with her the past 2 years, and she was the superintendent here before I made this transition. And she made the comment. She said, "Every time you made the change, Shelley, you were different." So when people said, "Well, you've changed," my person, Shelley Groves, the person, has not changed, but absolutely I have changed in terms of my leadership. You don't want a math teacher as the principal. You want a principal. And that changes your filter. That changes the lens in which you are looking at situations and having conversations, and your perspective change. So, oh my goodness, with each transition, yes, the comment was made, "What, you've changed, you changed." Yeah, you want me to change. You want someone that is looking at it through the lens of the principal or the district or as the superintendent. So that has been a challenge, but I would tell you there's an incredible staff here. They've been very supportive. They know me as a person, and that's the other piece. When you're interviewing internally and everyone knows you and they've known you for 15 years, um, you've got to be telling the truth because everybody knows if you're not in the interview. So unique process, but it was wonderful with each step of my journey. And again, wonderful staff, just being able to answer the question, well, why this change, Shelley? I didn't think you thought this, or why has your perspective changed? And just taking the time to have conversations with those folks.
I appreciate that mentor's advice and that you're able to share that with our audience today, because I think that that's something that most go through when they are making that transition from teacher to leader.
Mhm.
And I've never heard it worded quite like that. And that just makes so much sense because too often, instead of embracing the fact that, yes, I need to be a different person to go to this next level, it's a different set of skills that I need to bring to the table. So often we try to defend, oh no, I'm still the same person. Oh no, it's still just me, Rachel Mann, that you've always known. And in this situation, Shelley Groves. So that's a fantastic perspective that I think that we should all use when we are mentoring and helping others to get to that next level. It is a different skill set, and you need it to be a different person to be in that new role.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Shelley, how has your perspective on education changed now that you've experienced from a classroom to administration? And I know you just shared some of that, but are there other perspectives that have had to have some shifts as well?
Oh, what hasn't changed, Rachel? Truthfully, when we started, when I kicked off the school year this year, our phrase, I will say, over the past couple of years since COVID, has been the world has changed, people have changed, technology has changed, and if we're not changing, then we're going to be obsolete. The way we service students, we can't service students the same way we did 5 years, and I'll even go back as far as 10 years. They learn differently. When I was in school, I joke with the administrative staff. When I was in school, the biggest thing that I think my little school had to deal with was maybe tobacco in the drinking fountain, and now that seems so minimal compared to what our students are dealing with in their personal lives, and all of that that comes to school with them that they are dealing with. So just the dynamics of the world and preparing them not only with work ready workforce skills, getting those skills built up in terms of career technical education, but meeting the child where they are. Because again, they're all coming from very different situations and circumstances. And since we service 16 different school districts, we cover 700 square miles in central Ohio. So we are very diverse. So take that diversity that we have inherently just because of geographics, and then what's taken place in terms of the changes going on in the world and technology. It's a very dynamic place right now, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
And it's interesting what you said about people talking about since COVID, and it's almost as if we pretend that it's gone away. I just had COVID a couple of weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I know that I had been acting as if it was not a thing any longer. But I remember back in 2021 in the summer, posting on Twitter, which it was now X, of course, but I said that if we start the 2021-22 school year in the same way that we did in 2020, that we've allowed the COVID-19 crisis to go to waste, because so many people were talking about, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. Well, this
Yeah.
is our new world that we're living in, and it can't
Yep.
be the same as it was before. Otherwise, we just missed a huge opportunity to keep all of the lessons that we learned. I remember having a guest on the podcast who talked about how how COVID really amplified what we were doing well and what we weren't doing so well
Yeah.
and what needed to change in education. But yeah, it's definitely a different world. And just like you need different skill sets to go into a new level administration, we have to have different skill sets to navigate this new world around us. You have done a lot of curriculum design, and I know that you are a huge advocate of student voice and choice, which I love how important to have the superintendent supporting such important initiatives. Can you give some examples of how this has shaped a particular program or initiative in Groveport, Ohio?
Yes, I will be very transparent to some degree. About 3 years ago, we sent out a survey to all of our stakeholders, meaning parents, guardians, students, business partners, as we were getting ready to develop a strategic plan and update our vision, mission, and values. In that process, the feedback we received from students academically, we were very traditional. We weren't thinking outside of the box a lot. Our career tech labs, incredible. A lot of inquiry-based learning, project-based learning, very hands-on. But our academic content, hearing from students, some of the comments, the instructors are so nice. We love the teachers, but I hate the class. So that really became a focus for me of how can we change that narrative? Because we want students to come, not only love the lab, we know they come as a math teacher in this district. I know they're not flocking to take Algebra 2 at Eastland-Fairfield. They're here for welding or they're here for pre-nursing. But how can we model that career tech philosophy in our academic courses? So what we started, I would say about a year ago, while I was assistant superintendent, we started looking at each of our academic pathways. And I started with English language arts because if you look at those standards in Ohio, the standards for English language arts for 11 and 12 are the same. Okay. And you can be very creative in how you present those. So what we did is I went to the teachers, I shared the feedback that we were receiving from students. That was very hard for them to hear. And I appreciate that because if they didn't care what the students were saying, we'd be having different conversations. So they were appreciative. It was hard for them to hear. But when they came together and they said, "Hey, let's just look at this differently. Could we teach in a semester model as compared to year long?" So that was step number one. Let's take a look at how we are scheduling students and can we mix it up a little bit? So maybe you're not with the same teacher, but you're looking at different content areas, first semester, second semester. And then I asked the question, well, what if the students told us how they want to learn English language arts? What if they said, "Hey, can I learn these standards while we're talking about mythology or digital media? How can we shake this up a little bit?" So we presented a survey to students asking them what classes would they be interested in taking in terms of English language arts. They gave a huge, I think we had a list of like 20 classes with different focuses that we could fit these standards into the semester model. And we started building the classes. So we have a multicultural authors, a a digital media speaking through digital media course, a passion project course. So you've got all of these clusters that students helped us develop. They said, "This is how I want to learn it. Let's make the standards fit in there." And they're semester long. So now they can mix and match. They can double up on classes if they want to get out on work-based learning experiences sooner. They can earn some additional credits. They really did a great job of stepping up. This year, we've now moved that to science and social studies. Math is a little bit harder just because of some of the content, but we've even done a couple of math classes that way. Our science department came up with current events in science, which I think is so cool. And I am not a science person, but just taking a look at, tell us how you want to learn science. Tell us how you want to learn social studies. What context can we put it in so it makes sense to you? And we're still meeting all those benchmarks, all those standards for students.
And how do you balance career exploration and workforce development in the curriculum? And what is your philosophy on the importance of each?
So, career exploration and workforce development. We work very hard to partner with our associate schools. In my mind, when you talk about career exploration, That happens before you maybe make that leap to committing a full school day to career technical education. Now, there are some programs, absolutely, you can do a little bit more exploring as to specifically what do I want to do in this field. One example that I have is firefighting. I took a video, our firefighting senior students, they went out and did their first burn, and watching they were broken up in teams of, I can't remember, 4 or 5, and watching that team collaboratively work together and put this fire out. It was their first time actually in their full gear, out there with the hose, working on the fire at the station. The excitement. And all I thought was, that is workforce development. That is not exploratory. Those kids are doing the job. When you talk about our pre-nursing students that are going out and actually earning their STNA, and they're on the clinical site, they're in the nursing home, they're doing that. They are actually taking care of the patient. That's workforce development. So we've worked really hard to talk to our 16 associate districts about what is that difference. If they're dipping the toe in saying, is this something I like? We may not want to put them in front of the fire yet until they figure out, yeah, that's really what I want, and give them some additional training and really bulk up their skills. So it's more awareness of letting people know of what is that exploration and then what truly is workforce development. We've also dabbled, we're now looking at middle school and providing some resources for elementary students, not come to Eastland-Fairfield, but what kind of problems do you like to solve? What do you think you want to be? Because when you ask younger students, you get, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a firefighter. But for each doctor, there's 20 people below them that help support that doctor. So there's other places, there's other professions that you can be involved in. Not everybody's going to be a doctor. Not everybody has to be a doctor, but there's other way you can be in that service, that healthcare setting. So we work really hard with communicating with our associate schools to express that difference between exploration, you're dipping your toe in, or workforce development, you're out there fighting the fires.
That's such an important distinguishment. And I like the way that you're approaching that as dipping the toes in versus actually doing the work. You're out there earning the certificate. You're out there in the field doing the work versus in the classroom. Or like you said, when the students are putting out that first burn, first of all, that's a skill set that I probably need to learn regardless of whether I'm entering the workforce. But they're actually, that this is what they want to do. So they are approaching it in such a serious manner. This is what they're about. Exciting. It sounds like there's so many exciting things happening in your district and in your learning spaces. So kudos to you for leading these efforts and making the changes and helping it, even just what you were saying earlier in the conversation about the approach of the instructors when they're getting this new feedback and just, being able to really take it to heart and do something different. That shows a lot of growth and openness to be able to be willing to tackle those changes. So lots of exciting things happening.
Absolutely.
Well, Shelley, thank you so much for your time today. I know that you are super busy on day 100 of your new role. So thank you for carving out some time this morning to share best practices and just things that folks can replicate. And for the folks who are listening in, be sure to expand on the details of this podcast to connect with Shelley and to learn more about her work. And for the folks who are listening in, if you would like to be a guest on a future episode of the NCLA podcast, or if you have topics that you would like for us to address, please email me at info@ncla-cte.org. And thanks again, Shelley.